It is so good to have you all with us for another episode of the Beyond Hiawatha podcast. Bill Hobson here, and our guests on this episode go down in Hiawatha history as the first couple ever to break the rule about staff not being a series of couples. No other couple in the history of Hiawatha ever met at Hiawatha until Andrew and Kayla Cherry. I think I have my facts right on that.
That's on us. You're right.
We'll
Our
get
bad.
into, we'll do some fact checking here a little bit later on, just to be
Yeah,
sure. But it's good to see the two of you. How are you?
we're
Good.
good.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to have you connect with us, and we do so. I don't know when people listen to this podcast, but we're recording it very close to the end of February, which means we're very close to the start of a camp season.
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot to talk about in regards to preparation for the Allegan location, our new home.
hmm
Let's kind of go back in the Wayback Machine here for a couple of minutes. Back to your origin stories for Hiawatha, because you did meet there and you both came from
Mhm.
completely different places, just like so many of us have, and never dreamed that you would end up meeting somebody in the middle of nowhere in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So, Kayla, let me start with you. What's your first time experience? How'd you ever come to know of a place called Hiawatha?
Yeah, that takes me way back now. I'm, 28, and I first heard about Hiawatha when I was 12. So, well over half my life ago now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But I actually joined Billy Jay's church when I was 12. My family merged churches, and they obviously were talking about Hiawatha. And I was like, oh, camp sounds fun. Why not? And my dad was like, oh, yeah, I went there one time, like when I was a kid. And I was like, and this is the first time we were hearing about it. Like, we just had no idea. So, one thing led to another. Our youth group was getting plugged in, and they're like, yep, we're going to take a bus up. We should all go. And my brand new best friend at the time that we had just met week before camp, we were like, let's go together. And we went together and we loved it. We were like, we're staying, we're not coming home. We tried to stay as long as we could. And pretty much every summer since, I have been up in the UP, spending my summers up at camp. Super camping, for those of you who don't know, that's when you just would stay over for the whole 3 weeks. I'd just be gone for a month in the summers. So, yeah, it was so fun. And then I started being on staff in 2014. So that's also a long time ago.
Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yep. Took a couple summers off there, and the summer I came back was the summer that I met Andrew. So,
Okay, so there are some hard to explain components
hmm
of the camp experience. You can be 12 years old, you can go up there and maybe get homesick and not like it as much as you think. And what was it that clicked with you right off the bat?
the people, 100%. Because I look back and I'm like, I remember even like when they dropped us off when we got there and like the staff was busy, even just the campers, like everyone was just, we're hanging out. We're all friends now. This is what we're doing. And let's go play ping pong, and then let's go and run bases. And it was just from the second you got there, it was just instant best friends. And like the staff, everyone was just enamored with how cool the staff were and just how involved they were. And I mean, the grounds, as you know, were our special, but they were nothing special. So it was one of those things that it's just unplugging and being away, and obviously then like going to services and stuff and just really meeting the Lord in a way that I had never met him in my life before. Was just, I was hooked. Like, I just couldn't get enough. I wanted to be there all summer, every summer, and that's what I started doing.
And
So,
so, unbeknownst to you, somewhere in that Huntington, Indiana area, there's a young stud by the name of Andrew who somehow
is
the
indeed.
Lord has ordained this trip for him to that same place in the middle of nowhere. Andrew, I didn't learn this until a couple hours ago when I was talking with my wife that she actually knows your parents and is good friends with your parents because she went to Huntington and all
Mhm.
these different connections that I really wasn't aware of. But how do you go from Huntington, Indiana to Hiawatha?
I grew up in Michigan, and like my dad was a pastor, so we had like stuff at the church about different camps and stuff, but I would didn't like going outside of my comfort zone, and like I didn't have anyone my age at our church, so I'd be going to camp by myself, so I like kind of just shied away from that. But fast forward a few years, go to Huntington. a girl in our friend group, Hannah Britton. She grew up coming to Hiawatha, um, and she went to school with Bo, so you have that connection. But she knew I didn't have anything to do one summer, and so invited me to come up to camp. And I kind of didn't want to at first, but I didn't have any other plans and prayed about it a few times. And then eventually God told me I needed to come. And so I applied on like a Friday. Mary got back to me on a Saturday saying I was good to be on staff and I was supposed to be up there on the next Tuesday. So it was like a 3 day turnaround.
Which is so crazy because that same thing happened to me that summer. I wasn't planning on going back randomly in 2018, and your son actually said, "Give me three valid, keyword being valid reasons why you're not going to be on staff this summer." Couldn't do it. Told Craig offhanded, "Hey, I'm thinking about being on staff again this summer." He told me, "I'll see you there." And 3 days later, I packed and I was up there too. So,
You know,
so crazy.
I'm so glad that both of you said that it was the influence of a friend that helped you kind of get over that hump, because sometimes that's what it takes. Is just somebody else to challenge you, or, to encourage you. Anybody who knows Hannah Britton knows that you're not really saying no to Hannah once she gets her mind set to something, and we're so glad for
Mhm.
that. And Kayla, you said you had taken a little break, so you hadn't been up there for a while. So now this magic convergence takes place, and the two of you are on staff. But
Yeah.
I know how this works. It's not like, I don't think you saw each other for the first time when there were violins and fireworks. You're working together
Yeah.
Mhm.
for several weeks in a pretty much nonstop togetherness with a bunch of people environment. How far into that summer was there some sort of a, I don't know about that girl or that guy? I've kind of, you start to have these other thoughts.
I will say when we used to back in the day have these Facebook groups for the staff, he was in there and I was thinking to myself, I have never seen this kid in my life because we grow up together with all these staff members. I'd been off for 2 summers, so a lot of returning staff members at that point in time. It was still relevant enough of a year. So I knew pretty much everybody except for Andrew. So that stuck out to me where I was like, who is this guy? And then we get up there, and my first impression of him is we're all going around sharing where we're from. Craig is asking us to say our name, where you're from, and he is from Brooklyn, Michigan. He stands up and starts beating on his chest and says, "I'm from Brooklyn," and like yelled it. And Craig looked at him and just goes, "Okay." Anyways, and just moved on to the next
Yeah.
person. And I was like, what a weirdo. That was so odd.
How does the quietest guy in every room do that, Andrew?
Oh, that's a great question. I
Nervousness?
remember like the day we get up there, you get there, get out of your car, and they hand you a rake to start like preparing the grounds and stuff.
Mhm.
And so, like the group of us that were raking together, we all sat at the same table. And so I just spent like 4 hours with those people, kind of getting to know them. And so I felt comfortable with them. And so when Craig had everybody just like say your name and where you're from, I did that. And then the room just went silent. And then I realized that there's like 20 other people here who have never met me. And I like was so embarrassed, but I was like, well, oh well, it
Uh,
happened.
I
Good story.
love it.
So,
So he got eventually, Kayla, he went past being the weird kid to the kid that you kind of liked.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about obviously there's like the rule of proximity. You're with somebody all the time. But I think when you not only see them, like you see them around kids, you see their faith, you hear their testimony, you see how hard workers everyone is. Like you can see everybody you see them when they're tired, you see them when they're happy, you see them when they're worshiping. You go through this just array of emotions. You're in it for I mean, when you're doing the work for the Lord, like it's just something very unique. And so I think you see a lot of sides from people very quickly that you may not see in traditional like dating or meet and greet settings. And so I think just seeing him interact with the kids, seeing he was so funny and just so kind. And I think I mean, and he was cute, so like that helped. But I think like there was something that just our friendship developed first, but then we just kind of, I was like, this guy is really something special. And I feel like it's kind of weird how we both ended up here so last minute And it was just kind of one of those that just felt like the Lord kind of nudging me, like, all right, go say something. Like, come on, go do something. And we started writing notes to each other when we had mailboxes back then. We used to have mailboxes for every single person on staff. So we started writing little notes back and forth to each other, encouraging each other, praying for each other, sharing just random jokes and just inside jokes. And by the end of the summer, I knew what I wanted. I just needed to convince him to figure out what he wanted.
A little
So
slow to the game here, were we, Andrew?
Yeah,
just a little
I guess you could
cautious.
say that. I remember like we were writing notes back and forth, but I remember like telling myself probably a couple times a day, like you didn't come here to meet girls, you came here to like pour into kids and further your own faith. And so I guess was kind of conflicted because I knew if I was hanging out with Kayla, then that's not doing that. And I wanted my attention to be where it needed to be. So that was my hesitation.
Well, in part of that whole journey, and the reason that I dwelled on it for as long as I did is because you are, as Kayla said, in this setting where you're serving, and
Mhm.
where your top priority is to see young people come to know and follow Christ with all of their days and all of their heart and all of their lives. Um, and quite often that is kind of driven home by some powerful messages from speakers throughout the years. Do you guys have like your I don't know, your Hall of Fame for your own personal messages or speakers that you experienced when you were campers and or when you were staff members?
Man, I mean, there were so many, but I
Mhm.
think like, I mean, way back in the day, as you'll remember when we had like Saturday celebration and all of like the Sunday mornings and just a lot more exposure, even like I just obviously think of like Billy Walker Sr. first. I feel like that, I mean, you can't hear that voice booming off a podium and not feel something that is just, as you know, like you just, that voice will change your life. And I think just learning about like his vision for camp and why he led for so many years and just hearing his experience with the Lord, like that was always so powerful. And just to become friends with him, like I know he was so much older than me, but he was just like another honorary grandparent to me. And so he was really special. And I think of like Benjamin Baker. I think of even, man, like some of the staff speakers we've been able to have. Some of those
Mhm.
speakers that have poured into the staff alone have been very impactful. Jim Dahlke is one of them. Even when Craig has spoken to the staff,
Mhm.
I think it's the people that really speak life over you and into you with the truth of the Bible and the Lord. Like those are the people that I go back to that I'm like, that changed the course of my life. Like I can't, it just when you're spoken into in that way, it's so different than any other message. And so I think those are a few that definitely come to mind. Obviously, we have some of our newer speakers now, like Leo Robinson. He's been with us for a while now. Um, and yeah, it's just I think it's the people that you're like you're a friend of the Lord, like you know the Lord. And so I think those people are always very impactful to
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
back.
Andrew, what's your list look like?
Um, I think pretty similar to Kayla, although I didn't get the blessing of like getting to hear Billy Walker Sr. speak. I met him a bunch that first summer. Um, I think the first one that probably stands out to me was Leo Robinson. My first year on staff was his first year speaking. And I remember like Bo giving the introduction like we do when it's like a speaker's first session. And he introduces him and Leo has him like redo it and was like, this is terrible. You gotta try again. And Bo does it again. And Leo like interrupts him and cuts him off and makes him do it again. And then Leo ends up introducing himself and it just like it was very charismatic and that was just really stood out to me. And
Were you there the night that I introduced him with the fog machine going and the final
yeah,
countdown music going?
yes.
Leo still
Yeah.
thanks me for that. He says, that's the finest intro I've ever gotten. He
That
said,
was a
Yeah,
great introduction.
"I
yeah.
feel
Yes.
like I
Couldn't
was
agree more.
like I was a piston running onto the court. And man, the Lord has gifted that man with the ability to communicate. And I'm glad you both pointed him out. It's been a hard to describe journey for Hiawatha in the past few years, right? So departing the Upper Peninsula, stopping over in Roscommon for a while and for I think 3 years, there
Great.
at Bambi Lake, and being very grateful for the opportunity to be there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't think many people understand the world of the young married couple when it comes to serving at camp. We're going to talk about why you're still committed to all of this and what's kept you in it, because you both have lives and careers that are growing and all of these things, and yet you still remain committed to being in the summer times at Hiawatha and at the Roscommon site at Bambi Lake. You're sharing a house, a cottage, I don't know, whatever, with other couples
Mhm.
with not a lot of personal space, not
Mhm.
a lot of noise protection from infants and dogs and whatever else is going on. Was there ever a time where you looked at each other and said, "Hey, we gave it a really good try here. I'm out."
No, not yet, and that's why we're still here.
Good.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said. I think one of the really, really, really special things that I think it's because, I mean, it's the Lord that He's just handpicked the team that we have,
Mhm.
is we love living with our best friends every summer. Like, I can't imagine not making my coffee with Blaine in the morning and brushing my teeth with Sarah at night and having a snack over lunch with Hannah when we're trying to work at the table. Like, those are the moments that I just cherish our friendships, and I just can't imagine not doing that. And yes, there are easier things than to pack up every summer and live in our little shoebox, as we so lovingly called our converted garage room for the last 3 years. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that it's just we love living with our best friends every summer and just
Mhm.
doing ministry together.
What a great way to put that. It's one of the things that those of us who are old people miss the most about our evening shindigs and our gatherings and just being together,
Yeah.
right? Because it
Mhm.
doesn't last forever. But
Mhm.
when it's there, it forms those friendships that last a lifetime. And
Mhm.
you learn to appreciate it even more as you get further down the road. Um, Andrew, when you explain to people
Mhm.
about this camp and where it's been and now where it's going, how do you sum it all up with this? The ending is the new location in Allegan, but that's not the whole story. How do you tell people the Hiawatha story?
That's a great question. I feel like it kind of depends on the person asking me. But I feel like the heart of every answer that I give is that God's not done yet. Um, because God's still moving and he's going to move regardless of what people do. But like, I think as long as we're diligent and keep trying to do his work, he's going to use us. Whatever people are on staff, like whatever um, accommodations we have, God's gonna use those to further his kingdom. So,
Have both of you been to the new location yet? You
Yeah.
said so. What was your first impression when you first got to what was Camp Cascatoa in Allegan, the new site of Hiawatha? You get out of the car, you get 10 minutes into your walk around the campus. What's going through your mind?
This feels a lot more like the UP than I thought it would.
I thought the same thing. It
That was my first
smelled
thought.
like it too. It was
It
wild.
did.
mm, yeah.
Because I think you think of Allegan, and one of my best friends from college grew up there. So I had been there multiple times. And I thought of like the downtown area, the city parts. And so I didn't think of the set apart forest type of vibe for Allegan. But sure enough, even like looking out over the water, you feel like you're again removed. And that's what I think we were missing leaving the UP, and what we were really wanting back is to unplug and feel like, okay, we're reachable from the outside world if we need to be, but we can unplug and just be present. And so I think that was a pleasant surprise to feel,
Yeah.
oh, this feels like it's kind of in the UP again.
Yeah, when I first got there and took that first tour around with the gentleman named Rich, who introduced us to the place and helped facilitate all of it, I was very curious as to how everybody else would receive it. I wasn't sure. I thought some of you might get there on that first visit and go, "Well, I don't know why we're here." Nobody, nobody did that. Andrew, what was your kind of first impression?
Um, I remember like I walked down to the dock and I was by myself and I just kind of like looked out over the water and that just reminded me so much of Pyatt. And I guess how secluded it is reminded me a lot of where we had been before. And I feel like when we're able to disconnect from regular life, it's kind of easier to tap into like just being close to God. And so like when I was down on that dock, I was just like, this is home. This is where we're gonna be. And I just felt very at peace.
Oh, that's very cool. You both mentioned the concept of disconnecting. I think that's such an incredibly important point to make and an impossibility for teenagers today to think about being disconnected.
Yeah.
You'll see kids go through physical withdrawals if their phone is not, they can't find their phone for 14 minutes.
Mhm.
I'd love to hear from the two of you who are so steeply committed to youth ministry. How do we fight that battle? How do we do it in a Hiawatha context? Confiscate phones? Do we tell them to leave them at home? What do we do to make sure that while they're with us for those few days, that it is the uninterrupted voice of the Holy Spirit that they're hearing as opposed to checking their Instagram and Snapchats every 14 seconds?
Yeah, I think some of it is hard to get them to kind of rewire their brains a little bit because the gut instinct is to grab the phone all the time and to record everything and look to their friends that are online. But I think when you replace that with being present and encourage them, like, hey, this week is only happening for this week. Like, let's be here.
Mm,
You'll go home, you'll have your phone, it's going to happen again. But the people that are here with you and these times and these moments, you're never going to get back. And so we always encourage them, like, this is going to go by in a literally you're going to blink and it's going to be over. So we always encourage them to just leave their phones. We obviously don't let them use it during worship and during like the speaking times and even meals. We like have them put their phones, like flip them over on the table. But I think the cool thing to watch is when you replace something that's so artificial with something that's so intentional and good and genuine. And when it's like the Lord and friendships and people that want to see you grow and people that are loving on you, by the end of the week, the kids aren't grabbing their phones anymore. They're not, you can see them all and they're present, they're with each other, they're laughing, they're going off and playing, and they're jumping off the bridges in the water and everything. And I think like they don't think about it because they're replacing it with the really good real life moments. And I think
Mhm.
that's very cool to be able to just foster those moments for them so they're reaching for their phone less, which is good.
yeah, I was talking with a youth pastor about that very thing my church runs their own retreats and things like that. And I just said, hey, what do you guys do? What's the rule? Because I'm disconnected from that generation. And he said, on our retreats, you just don't bring them. You just leave them at home. That's part of our rules. You're not going to bring, all the things you can't bring, but now they've added that to it. And he said it probably costs us a couple of kids every year, but in the long run, it's stunningly powerful for these kids to realize they don't have to be tethered to it. So, if this old man ever gets a vote, it would be part of our policy that the kids would just leave their phones at home, or that
Yeah.
if they brought them, that they would be locked up for the week and then give them back to them at the end of the week. But I'm not setting policy. I'm just giving suggestions. How's that?
I like that suggestion too. I know it's one of those things a lot of even counselors are like, we're leaving them in this box in my corner where no one can reach them, so they're safe. And if your mom calls you, we'll know, but you're safe because that's always the excuse. Well, what if my mom calls me and what if my mom texts me? That's always how they get you.
Mhm.
But I think it's nice to see when you give them the option to choose real life in front of them. By the end of the week, they're all choosing that for the most part, and that is very powerful just to how camp plays a role in their lives. So,
Sure. The connection point with kids these days is difficult to find. You both know that because they come from such different stories, different backgrounds. At a time when young people are searching for just something that's not going to pull the rug out from under their feet, is there anything we can count on? Is there anything reliable in this world? Because depending on how they're spending their time and their entertainment investment, the fads, the trends, everything changes in a flash. Andrew, for the folks who are listening to our conversation,
Mhm.
what is it that you want young people to know and to learn and to come away with from their time at camp? What, I guess, in other words, what's the point of camp beyond getting outside and playing?
Um, I think a big thing is community, just the importance of people and like fostering relationships and building connections. Um, and then kind of along with that is like leading kids to Christ and fostering and deepening that relationship with Christ. Um, like I think that's the heart of our ministry. And I think in that place where you have less technology and you're busy with people, like that's how memories are made. And I think that's just a great way to do that. So,
Is it accurate for me to say that in the next few weeks, and it'll fly by, March, April, May, and then June's here and then camp's here, that in the next few weeks, it is kind of all hands on deck time to prepare the physical property at our new location. We can talk a little bit about the needs that are out there for volunteers and things like that. But as you guys have been in conversation with Craig and Laura and Blaine and Hannah, is it a sprint from here on out? As soon as the snow melts, is it a sprint?
I think a little bit. I would say a controlled sprint, though. I know we have a plan in place. A lot of preparation has gone into this summer to make it happen, quick turnaround time. But again, I think like the Lord has just made a way, and now is the time. He said it's happening. You better keep up. So here we are trying to keep up, and there is a lot to be done, but we have a plan in place, and we're trusting that the Lord's going to bring it all to fruition by, yeah, June. So,
It'll be here
yeah.
fast.
Mhm.
What excites you guys the most about this next chapter? What's kept you, we talked about what's kept you in it. That's your passion for young people and for the ministry.
Mhm.
What has you most excited about year one in Allegan, knowing that whatever version of the Hiawatha Youth Camp experience is there in 2026, it'll probably be a little bit different in 27 because we'll have another year to do some more things facilities wise and
Mhm.
kind of get ready. But what's your expectation and what's your excitement point for this summer?
Yeah. I think we're really excited. Like I know I'm very excited. I think one thing I'm really looking forward to is just having a place to call home for HYC. Um, and kind of with new grounds, you can maybe start new traditions or just like the newness of the experience. I think that's something that I really look forward to. Um, and so, yeah.
Yeah, I think this past summer, a lot of us felt like when this was kind of on the table and being introduced, we were at Bambi for a reason and Roscommon for a reason, reaching those kids for a reason, and it was great. And we had great facilities, and it was an awesome 3 summers. But it felt like we were doing work in the waiting. And so we were in the waiting of, okay, what's our future look like? What does our home look like? Because we knew Bambi wasn't forever. We were very they were very generous to give us the space to be able to rent for the 3 summers we were there, but we knew it wasn't our forever home. We wanted a home for us to be able to build off of. And so we did the work in the waiting, and the Lord brought this to us in a way that truly only He could, which was a crazy story that I know you guys have talked about,
It
but
really is.
very,
Yeah.
very cool. And so I think just like knowing that this is truly a gift from the Lord and exactly where He wants us, it's exciting to be able to just follow His lead and be where He wants us to be. And so I think even for us personally, but also for us as a staff and camp ministry, we know that this is exactly where we need to be. No two-way about it, no way around it. We know like this is where He wants us to be. So I think just that part is really exciting for me, and just being able to bring back old traditions and start new traditions together, and just the fact that our staff is incredibly strong and committed, and that's exciting in and of itself, that we already just have so many people excited and championing for the summer. And I think like whatever it looks like, I know it's going to be the Lord's will, and that's just exciting that we can follow that. So I think that's just where we're at.
One of the things that has been so touching to me is that all of the people involved with that property who helped make it possible to give it to us have their greatest desire is to see young people come to know Christ.
Yeah.
There's no games being played. There's no territorial claim. There's no nothing. They have just simply said, what do you need? How can we help you? You guys don't know this, but hopefully you'll meet her at some point. There's a restaurant in Allegan. I think it's called Judy's. It might be called Jody's, but it's one of the two.
Mhm.
And inside there, one of the waitresses' names is either Jody or Judy. It's the other one. It's not her mom owns the place and she
Okay.
works there. I met her a few months ago because my parents would go there frequently for breakfast, and this very nice lady grew up at that camp.
Mm.
And when I started to tell her what was transpiring there, she had tears in her eyes. And she said, all any of us have ever wanted to see is a ministry thrive there and to see young people affected and impacted for Christ. And, she said, there's a whole community of us from the former camp that will be thrilled when we get the chance to come over there and help out and clean up or whatever. So, we've got to touch base with them and activate them. But there's this, I don't know how better to put it other than by saying there's this purity of heart that is, I think, infused in that property. This is what it's for. I mean, the
Yeah.
name was Kaskatoa, which translates to God did it. There's no other explanation
Yeah.
for how it's now the home of Hiawatha. It's pretty
Powerful.
mind-blowing, pretty
Yeah.
mind-blowing. Well, I sure appreciate you guys sharing your story. The last question I have for you is there are a lot of people listening to this who are not going to be campers. I don't think any campers listen to our podcast. I'd be very surprised. If you're a camper out there and you're listening to this podcast, send us a note. We have a free t-shirt for you this summer. All right,
Seriously.
done. That's a deal.
That's funny.
Kayla and Andrew will make it happen.
We'll make it happen.
Send us a note and say, I listened, I'm a camper, and I want my free t-shirt. But for those people who are listening, in large part, they're either alumni from the staff, maybe they're former speakers or current speakers, and a lot of them are just faithful, generous supporters of Hiawatha. And in many cases, they have been for years and years and years. You guys have committed your young adult lives, your married lives to serving on camp. On staff, what would you like those people to hear from you?
I think that the biggest thing, like your prayers, your financial offerings, your time, it matters. Every ounce anybody has put into this ministry, it matters because we've seen the impact in our own lives and we've seen the impact in our campers' lives. Like the impact for Christ, it keeps going and going and going. And I think sometimes people don't realize the impact. And I just would urge you to continue praying, continue following along, continue loving and supporting the ministry because the work that we're doing here, while I feel lucky to play a small role in it, it's just the bigger picture of impacting the world for Christ. And it starts in our corner here in Michigan. So I would just urge you to just realize, reflect, and be grateful that it matters that we're all a part of this ministry that's way bigger than all of us, but the impact is there and it's real. So, and thank you for supporting us all the time. We have a lot of people in our corner and we're very, very grateful for that.
Mhm.
That's very well said. Andrew, anything you want to add in closing?
I think she said it pretty well. I think like the impact that we can have on campers in a week's time is profound during that week, but then once they go back home, that's out of our control. And so, like, praying for the campers that were there once they leave, trying to get them plugged in and connected to their church back home, that's a big thing. And just trying to foster that growth that they experience during that week. Because it's like a snowball effect where it's like a little bit but once it gets rolling, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the impact can be huge.
Yeah.
And so when you never know what kid it's gonna like actually latch onto and have that huge impact, and we hope it'll be all of the kids. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, sure appreciate you guys kind of sharing your hearts for the ministry. I don't know yet where you're sleeping this summer.
We
We've
don't
got
either.
a lot of things to work on. We want to talk about commitment. How about you're, 90-ish days away from camp starting, and our married staff members are still wondering, where might we be sleeping this summer? And
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. The Lord will provide a way, and we're glad you're in it. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for
Thanks
having
for
us.
having us.